Standing in my son's apartment doorway with the wedding gift I'd saved 3 years to buy, I heard words that shattered my heart. "We got married yesterday, old man. Just for special people." My new daughter-in-law's smirk cut deeper than any blade. Behind her, my son Nathan avoided eye contact, while her family laughed from the living room. 27 years of sacrificing everything for him, and I wasn't special enough for his wedding. That moment changed everything between us forever. The morning after Madison dropped her bombshell about the wedding, I sat in my kitchen staring at old photo albums. Nathan's first day of school, his high school graduation, the day he got accepted to law school. In every picture, it was just the two of us. His mother, Emily, had died when he was 5, leaving me to raise our boy alone in our small house in Columbus, Ohio. I remembered those early days, like they happened yesterday. Working construction during the day, then picking up shifts at the warehouse at night, just to keep food on the table and save for Nathan's future. My hands bore the scars of countless overtime hours. My back ached from years of heavy lifting, but every sacrifice felt worth it when I saw my boy succeed. The photos told our story. Nathan, at 8, grinning with his Little League trophy that I'd coached him to win, despite never playing baseball myself. Nathan, at 16, standing next to the used Honda Civic I'd rebuilt for him in our garage. Nathan, at 22, hugging me after his college graduation, whispering, "Thanks, Dad, for everything." When had it all changed? I traced it back to 2 years ago, when Madison Harper entered our lives. Nathan had just started at Preston & Associates, a prestigious law firm downtown. He met her at some networking event, and within weeks, she'd wrapped herself around his life like kudzu on a Georgia pine. From the start, something felt off about Madison. She had champagne tastes on what she claimed was a freelance marketing budget, though I never saw her work a day. Her designer clothes, weekly salon appointments, and constant trips to high-end restaurants didn't add up. When I gently questioned Nathan about it, he got defensive. "Dad, you don't understand how things work in my world now," he'd said during one Sunday dinner. "Image matters. Madison helps me project success." That was the first crack in our foundation. The boy who used to help me fix neighbors' roofs for extra cash now talked about projecting success instead of earning it. The changes came gradually. Our weekly dinners became monthly then, every other month. Phone calls shortened from hour-long conversations about everything and nothing to quick 5-minute check-ins that felt obligatory. When I visited his new apartment, Madison would appear within minutes, suggesting they had reservations somewhere or important plans. "Your father must be tired, Nathan," she'd say with that practiced smile. "Blue-collar work is so exhausting. We shouldn't keep him." Blue-collar. She said it like it was something dirty, something shameful. Nathan never corrected her. My nephew Marcus worked as a branch manager at Columbus National Bank. Last month, he'd pulled me aside at a family barbecue with concern written across his face. "Uncle Archie." I probably shouldn't say anything, but Nathan came in for a loan application. On the form where it asks about family, he listed his father's occupation as retired laborer and said you lived in a nursing facility. The words hit like a sledgehammer. Nursing facility. I still worked part-time consulting for construction projects, still maintained my own house, still had more energy than men half my age. But apparently, that truth didn't fit the image Nathan wanted to project. Marcus continued, "There's more. When my colleague mentioned she knew you from the community center where you volunteer, Nathan actually said you were a different Archie and that his father keeps to himself due to health issues. My own son was erasing me from his life, replacing his real father with some fictional invalid who wouldn't embarrass him in front of his new social circle." The wedding revelation suddenly made perfect sense. Madison had orchestrated the whole thing, but Nathan had allowed it. The wedding was last weekend, at Rolling Hills Country Club, Madison's father's domain. Marcus had done some checking for me. The guest list read like a who's who of Columbus legal and business circles. Madison's family, Nathan's bosses and colleagues, local politicians, and society page regulars. But not the man who'd held Nathan through night terrors after his mother died. Not the father who'd taught him to ride a bike in Goodale Park, who'd stayed up helping with science projects, who'd sold his own father's classic Mustang to pay for Nathan's LSAT prep courses. I wasn't special enough for that guest list. Standing in that doorway yesterday, holding the restored Rolex that had belonged to Emily's father, watching Madison's satisfied smirk, while her family laughed at something on their phones, I made a decision. I wouldn't rage. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me broken. Instead, I carefully placed the wrapped gift on their entry table, nodded once at Nathan, who still couldn't meet my eyes, and left without a word. But as I walked to my truck, my mind was already working. Madison thought she'd won by excluding me from the wedding. She thought she'd successfully separated Nathan from his embarrassing blue-collar father. She had no idea who she was dealing with. I might work with my hands, but I'd built a construction company from nothing, negotiated with unions, handled million-dollar contracts. I'd raised a son alone while building a business. I'd survived losing my wife, economic downturns, and industry changes. Madison Harper thought she could erase me from my son's life with a country club wedding and some society page photos. She was about to learn that Archie Coleman didn't break that easily. I wouldn't fight with anger or demands. No, I'd learned long ago that the best foundation is one that's carefully planned and properly laid. Sitting in my truck outside their building, I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts. First call would be to my lawyer, George Hartman. Second, to my accountant, Ruth Chen. Third, to a private investigator I'd used for the company when we had employee theft issues. Madison wanted to play games with family fine, but she'd chosen the wrong family to play with. I'd spent 27 years building a life for my son. I wasn't about to let some champagne-sipping opportunist tear it all down without understanding the true cost of her choices. The hurt would have to wait. Right now, I had work to do. 7 days passed in careful silence. I went about my routine consulting on the new hospital wing construction, volunteering at the community center, maintaining my properties. To anyone watching, Archie Coleman seemed unchanged by his son's betrayal. Inside, I was assembling pieces of a puzzle I didn't yet fully understand. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon, while I was reviewing architectural plans in my home office. Madison's name appeared on my phone screen, probably the first time she'd ever called me directly. "Archie, this is Madison, your daughter-in-law." Her voice dripped with false sweetness, pronouncing daughter-in-law, like she was reminding me of her new status. "Madison." I kept my tone neutral, shuffling papers loud enough for her to hear. "I'm calling about the rent situation. The transfer hasn't come through and we're already a week into the month. The management company sent a rather unpleasant notice." I paused, letting confusion creep into my voice. "Rent? What rent situation?" Her sweet tone cracked slightly. "The monthly transfer. For our apartment. Nathan said you've been handling it directly." "I'm not sure what you mean, Madison. Nathan hasn't asked me about any rent." The silence stretched long enough for me to hear her manicured nails tapping against something hard. "Archie, we need $4,500 transferred by end of business today, or there'll be late fees. Nathan assured me you understood the arrangement. $4,500. For rent." I kept my voice steady despite the anger building in my chest. "Perhaps you should discuss this with Nathan. I need to check my records." "Check your records, Archie. You've been paying this for 18 months. Don't play games with us." 18 months. The calculation was quick and nauseating. $81,000. I'd been hemorrhaging money I didn't even know about. "Madison, I'm getting older. Sometimes I forget things. Let me look through my checkbook and call Nathan later." Her exasperated sigh could have stripped paint. "Fine. But remember, we need this handled today. We can't have eviction notices sent to Nathan's firm. You understand how that would look, don't you?" After she hung up, I sat very still for about 30 seconds. Then I moved with purpose I hadn't felt in years. George Hartman's law office was a 20-minute drive, but I called ahead to ensure he'd clear his afternoon. George had been my lawyer for 15 years, handling everything from the sale of Coleman Construction to my real estate investments. He was sharp, thorough, and most importantly, discreet. When I walked into his mahogany-paneled office, his expression told me he'd already sensed this wasn't a routine visit. "Archie, what's wrong?" I laid out the phone call, the supposed rent payments, the 18-month timeline. As I talked, George's expression darkened. He pulled up my files on his computer, cross-referencing banking records he had access to from our business dealings. "Archie, I'm seeing regular withdrawals from your secondary business account. $4,500 monthly, going back exactly 18 months. They're marked as consulting payments to Preston and Associates. Nathan's firm?" "Yes, but routed through their account to a property management company, Harbor Luxury Properties. They manage that new high-rise on Broad Street." My son had forged business documents to pay his rent. The construction consultant in me recognized the setup immediately. Make it look like business expenses, hide it in legitimate-looking transfers. Hope the old man never noticed because he trusted his son. "There's more, Archie." George's fingers flew across his keyboard. "These aren't the only suspicious transactions. I'm seeing loan applications, credit inquiries, documents that require, 'Did you give Nathan power of attorney?' Never. Then we have a serious problem. Several of these documents bear signatures that claim to be yours. If you didn't sign them." Forgery. The word tasted like ashes. My son forged my signature. George printed page after page. Personal loans, credit cards, even an attempted home equity line against one of my rental properties that thankfully got flagged by the bank. The total damage approached $200,000. "I'll need to contact law enforcement," George said quietly. "Not yet." I held up a hand. "First, I need information. Real information about what's happening." My next stop was Tom Morrison's office. Tom ran a private investigation firm that specialized in corporate security, but he owed me a favor from when I'd hired his nephew at the construction company years ago. He agreed to take the case immediately. "What exactly are we looking for, Archie?" "Everything about Madison Harper. Her past, her present, her family, her finances, and—" I hesitated, then pushed forward. "Her relationship with my son. Something's not right here, Tom. This feels bigger than just greed." Tom nodded, making notes. "Give me 72 hours for preliminaries. I'll have my best researcher on it." Back home that evening, I played the confused old man perfectly when Nathan finally called. "Dad, Madison said she talked to you about the rent situation." "Nathan, I'm confused. Have I been paying your rent? Sometimes I forget things these days." "Dad, you've been helping us out while I establish myself at the firm. Remember? We discussed it when I moved to the new place." "Did we? I should write these things down. 4,500 seems like a lot, son." "It's Columbus Premium Real Estate, Dad. Image matters in my profession. You've always understood that." "Have I? My memory isn't what it used to be. Maybe we should meet to go over any financial arrangements. I'd hate to forget something important." The pause was telling. "We're pretty busy this week, Dad. Can you just handle the transfer? Madison's really stressed about this." "I'll see what I can do, son. You know me, always happy to help family." After hanging up, I made one more call. Ruth Chen, my accountant, was still at her office despite the late hour. "Ruth, I need you to freeze all automatic transfers from my accounts immediately, and I need a complete audit of the last 2 years of transactions. Every penny." "Archie, what's going on?" "I'm not sure yet, but I intend to find out." That night, I sat on my back porch, looking at the garden Emily and I had planted together 30 years ago. The oak tree we'd put in when Nathan was born now towered over the yard, its roots deep and strong. Madison thought I was just some doddering old fool she could milk for money while erasing me from Nathan's life. She thought the wedding exclusion was her victory lap. But I'd built things all my life. I understood foundations and structures, how to identify weak points and stress fractures. Madison had shown me hers with that phone call. The $4,500 for rent, that was just the visible crack. The real damage always runs deeper. 3 days later, Tom Morrison called with his preliminary findings. What he'd discovered changed everything I thought I knew about my daughter-in-law. Archie Madison Harper isn't even her real name. It's Madison Kowalski. She's been married twice before, both times to older men with successful sons. Both marriages ended when the money dried up. Go on. Here's where it gets interesting. She's been receiving regular transfers to an account in Nevada, $5,000 monthly, to someone named Jake Winters, former boyfriend, small-time gambler with big-time debts. The transfers started right around the time she began dating Nathan. Blackmail. Or payment for staying away. But Archie, there's one more thing. Medical records show she's currently pregnant, based on the dates. She was pregnant before the wedding. Before she even met Nathan, if my timeline is correct. About 5 months along now, which means... The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Madison needed a father for her baby, one with money and position. Nathan fit perfectly, especially with a father she thought she could exploit for cash, while keeping at arm's length. I thanked Tom and asked him to keep digging. The rent situation was just Madison testing the waters, seeing how much control she really had. She'd probably expected me to meekly transfer the money, like I had been unknowingly doing for 18 months. Instead, my confusion had forced her to reveal the arrangement Nathan had hidden from me. That evening, I drew up my own plans, not on blueprint paper, but in a worn notebook. Madison had built her house of cards on a foundation of lies, and my son's misguided shame about his background. She'd counted on my isolation, my ignorance, my willingness to fade into the background of Nathan's new life. But every builder knows that before you can construct something solid, sometimes you have to clear away the debris. Madison wanted rent money. She was about to learn that everything in life comes with a cost, and some bills can't be paid with money alone. I picked up my phone and typed a simple text to Nathan. Found my checkbook. We should talk about all our arrangements in person. How about Sunday dinner? You can bring Madison. I'll cook your mother's pot roast. The response came quickly. Sounds great, Dad. Madison's excited to spend time with family. I'll bet she was. But this Sunday dinner would serve something more than pot roast. It would serve notice that Archie Coleman might be old, might work with his hands, might not fit into country club society, but he was far from finished. The foundation was set. Now it was time to build. Sunday arrived with the kind of crisp Ohio autumn morning that Emily used to love. I'd been up since dawn, not just preparing dinner, but setting a different kind of table. George Hartman had spent the week helping me organize every deed document and financial record I owned. They now sat in carefully labeled folders in my study, waiting for their moment. The doorbell rang at exactly 4 o'clock. Nathan always was punctual, one of the few traits that apparently survived Madison's influence. I opened the door to find them standing there like a magazine advertisement for young prosperity. Nathan in his designer golf shirt and pressed khakis, Madison in a flowing sundress that probably cost more than most people's mortgage payments. Archie. Madison's embrace was theatrical, all air kisses and practiced warmth. Something smells absolutely divine. Just pot roast, I said, noting how she flinched slightly at the working-class meal. Nathan's favorite since he was 7. Nathan's smile looked genuine for the first time in months. Thanks, Dad. Haven't had your pot roast in forever. We made small talk while I finished dinner preparations. Madison doing her best to appear interested in my quaint kitchen, with its 30-year-old appliances that worked just fine. Nathan seemed more relaxed than I'd seen him lately, even helping set the table like old times. During dinner, I played my part carefully. Dropped my fork twice. Forgot Madison's name. Once repeated a story about Nathan's Little League days that I'd apparently told 10 minutes earlier. With each senior moment, I saw Madison and Nathan exchange glances across the table. Dad. Nathan finally said, pushing his empty plate away. That was incredible as always. But we wanted to talk to you about something important. Here it came. I arranged my face into confused attention. Madison touched Nathan's hand encouragingly. Go ahead, honey. Dad, we're concerned about you living alone in this big house. You mentioned having trouble with your memory, and we've noticed you seem confused sometimes. Confused? I blinked slowly. About financial things, especially, Madison added quickly. Like forgetting about the rent arrangement. We want to help. Nathan leaned forward, sincerity painted across his features. What if I helped you organize your affairs? Made sure bills were paid on time, helped you keep track of things. That's thoughtful, son. I stood slowly, deliberately favoring my left knee. You know I have been trying to organize things. Even started going through all the old papers in your mother's desk. Found some interesting documents. Their eyes sharpened with interest. Actually, I continued, maybe you could help me make sense of them. My eyes aren't what they used to be. I led them to my study, moving with the careful shuffle of a man uncertain of his balance. Behind me, I heard Madison whisper to Nathan, "This is perfect." The study had been strategically prepared. Folders lay scattered across my desk, some deliberately askew papers peeking out tantalizingly. I fumbled with my reading glasses, dropped them, picked them up with shaking hands. Where did I? Ah, yes. I pulled out a folder marked property deeds in large shaky handwriting. Been trying to figure out what I own. Gets confusing at my age. Nathan took the folder with barely concealed eagerness. His eyes widened as he flipped through the contents. 5 rental properties on the north side of Columbus, all paid off, generating steady income. A commercial building downtown, leased to 3 thriving businesses. Land parcels I'd accumulated over 40 years in the construction business. Dad, Nathan's voice cracked slightly. These properties, I had no idea. Oh, those old things. I waved dismissively. Just investments. There's another folder somewhere with the bank stuff. Purple folder, I think. Or was it blue? Madison practically dove for the blue folder marked Financial Holdings. Her gasp was audible as she discovered documentation of money market accounts, CDs, investment portfolios. The total wasn't enormous by Madison's country club standards, but it was solid, substantial, more than she'd dreamed the simple laborer possessed. Mr. Coleman. Madison's voice had changed, dripping honey now. You've been so successful, Nathan. Your father is a financial genius. Genius, no. Just save my pennies. Though I do worry about keeping track of it all. Doctor says my memory will only get worse. What doctor? Nathan looked genuinely concerned. Dr. Thompson Peterson, the one at the clinic, said I showed signs of, what was it, dementia, some D word. Complete fabrication, of course. Dr. Martinez had given me a clean bill of health last month, said I had the constitution of a man 20 years younger. But Nathan and Madison didn't need to know that. Dad, this is serious. Have you thought about planning for the future? I sank into my desk chair with a heavy sigh. I suppose I should. Just so overwhelming. Maybe you're right, Nathan. Maybe I need help. Madison knelt beside my chair, her performance worthy of community theater. We're family, Archie. We want to help you through this difficult time. You shouldn't have to worry about managing all these complex assets. Would you really help both of you? Of course, Dad. Nathan's hand on my shoulder felt almost genuine. We could start by organizing everything, maybe setting up systems to help you remember. I could even handle some of the day-to-day management if you'd like. And we could visit more often, Madison added. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. Family should stick together. Family. The word tasted bitter coming from the woman who'd excluded me from my son's wedding. That would be wonderful. I let my voice quaver with emotion. Oh, I just remembered, there's one more folder. Green one, I think. With the business sale documents. Nathan found the green folder, his hands trembling slightly as he opened it. There it was in black and white. Coleman Construction sold 10 years ago to a national firm for $3.2 million. After taxes and paying off the business loans, I'd cleared nearly $2 million. Jesus Christ, Dad. Nathan forgot his professional composure entirely. Madison's eyes had taken on a predatory gleam. Nathan, honey, your father clearly needs our help managing all this. We should probably consult with estate lawyers, financial planners. Yes, I interrupted, standing with apparent difficulty. But not tonight. Old man needs his rest. Why don't you take those folders with you? Look them over. Make notes. We can talk next week about making arrangements. They left, clutching the folders like lottery winners holding their tickets. I watched from the window as they sat in their Tesla Madison, gesturing wildly, while Nathan stared at the documents. I could practically see the calculations running through their heads. My phone rang an hour later. Marcus, my nephew. Uncle Archie just wanted to give you a heads up. Nathan called asking about getting added to your accounts as a co-signer. Said you'd asked him to help manage things. I told him any changes would need to come directly from you in person. Good boy, Marcus. And if he calls again? Same answer. You trained me well, Uncle. Nobody touches your accounts without your explicit verified permission. After hanging up, I sat in my darkened living room thinking about the trap I'd set. Nathan and Madison thought they'd discovered a gold mine. The scattered old man with millions in assets and failing memory. The perfect mark. But they'd missed crucial details in their greed. The rental properties all held in an LLC, with ironclad operating agreements. The commercial building, part of an irrevocable trust established years ago. The money from the business sale, spread across multiple institutions with specific beneficiary designations. I'd spent decades building not just wealth, but protections around that wealth. Every asset had been structured with the help of lawyers and accountants who understood that the construction business taught you one thing above all: always have a solid foundation and a good insurance policy. Margaret, Emily's sister, called around 9. Archie, Nathan just phoned asking about Emily's family trust. Wanted to know if you were the sole beneficiary. What did you tell him? The truth. That Emily set it up for her grandchildren, whether biological or adopted, with specific provisions. Not a penny available until they turn 25, and only for education or starting a business. He seemed frustrated. I imagine he was. Thanks, Margaret. Archie, what's going on? This isn't like Nathan. The boy's lost his way, Maggie. But maybe we can help him find it again. The next morning, I met with George Hartman and Ruth Chen together. We spent 4 hours reviewing every document Nathan and Madison had taken copies of, identifying what they could and couldn't access, what protections were already in place, and what additional safeguards we needed. They're going to push for power of attorney, George warned, based on your failing memory and the complexity of your assets. Let them push. In the meantime, I want you to draw up a new will. Nothing dramatic, just some specific conditions and clarifications. Ruth added her own insights. The rental income alone is nearly $20,000 monthly after expenses. They'll want access to those accounts first. Then we make sure they understand that wanting and getting are very different things. That evening, Tom Morrison called with an update on his investigation. Jake Winters is getting restless. My contact says he's been calling Madison repeatedly, threatening to come to Columbus. And there's more. Madison's been researching nursing homes and memory care facilities. High-end ones that would require you to liquidate assets to afford. How thoughtful of her to plan for my care. Archie, there's something else. I had my guy do a deep dive on Nathan's firm. He's not doing as well as he pretends. 2 major clients complained about his work. He's on thin ice, and his billing hours are way down. That apartment they can't afford. It's about image. He's trying to fake success until he achieves it. Or until he inherits it. Exactly. Madison's pushing him hard. My guy overheard her at a salon telling friends about their upcoming windfall and how they'd finally be able to live the way they deserved. I thanked Tom and ended the call. Outside the oak tree, Nathan and I had climbed together, creaked in the wind. That tree had weathered 30 years of Ohio storms. It bent, but never broke its roots, too deep, its trunk too strong. Madison and Nathan thought they'd found a weak old man with a fortune to plunder. Instead, They'd found something else entirely, a father willing to let his son reveal exactly who he'd become, and prepared to teach one last lesson about the difference between earning and taking between family and fortune. The phone rang, Nathan breathless with excitement. Dad, Madison and I have been reviewing everything. We have so many ideas for protecting your assets and ensuring your comfort. When can we meet with you and your lawyers? How about Thursday, son? My memory's better in the mornings. Say 10 o'clock. Perfect. Dad, thank you for trusting us with this. Trust. Another word that meant different things to different people. Nathan thought I was trusting him with my fortune. In reality, I was trusting him to show me whether any part of my real son still existed beneath Madison's influence. Thursday would bring answers one way or another. The foundation was laid, the framework erected. Now we'd see if the structure would hold, or if it would all come crashing down. The weeks following Nathan's discovery of my wealth transformed my relationship with him and Madison in ways that would have been comical if they weren't so heartbreaking. My phone, which had been silent for months now, rang daily with their concerned check-ins. Madison, who previously couldn't remember my name half the time, now cooed, "Dad," with such syrupy sweetness it made my teeth ache. They'd attempted several maneuvers to gain control of my assets, each thwarted by the legal protections I'd spent years establishing. Nathan's frustration grew with each failed attempt, though Madison maintained her facade of daughterly devotion. The calls kept coming, always with new suggestions for how they could help manage my affairs. It was during one of these calls that Madison dropped her surprise. "Dad, I have the most wonderful idea. Your 69th birthday is coming up next week, and we want to throw you a proper celebration." I hadn't celebrated my birthday beyond a quiet dinner with Marcus and Margaret in years. "That's not necessary, Madison. I don't need any fuss." "Nonsense. A successful man like you deserves to be celebrated. We've already started planning. It'll be at the country club, very elegant. We're inviting all your old friends and colleagues." Old friends and colleagues I hadn't heard from since Nathan started distancing himself from his blue-collar roots. Interesting. "Madison, I appreciate the thought, but—" "No buts, it's all arranged. Saturday the 15th at 7. Nathan's already sent invitations." After she hung up, I called Tom Morrison. "Tom, they're throwing me a birthday party. Seems sudden." "Not surprising. I've been monitoring Madison's social media. She's been posting about becoming closer with family and treasuring our elders, setting a narrative Archie, probably planning to use the party to establish their image as devoted caregivers." "Any updates on her pregnancy situation?" "Jake Winters has been spotted in Columbus, stayed at a motel on the west side for 2 nights before disappearing again, and Madison's been visiting a clinic on High Street, not her regular doctor." "Keep watching. This party might be more interesting than they planned." The night of the celebration, I arrived at Rolling Hills Country Club to find it transformed. Madison had spared no expense, though I suspected she'd put it all on Nathan's credit cards. Gold and silver decorations everywhere, a jazz quartet playing softly, tables groaning under elaborate floral arrangements. The guest list was revealing. Several of my old construction crew were there, looking uncomfortable in their rarely worn suits. They'd been mixed with Nathan's law firm colleagues, city council members, and what appeared to be half of Madison's country club social circle. The placement cards showed careful thought. My old friends were scattered, surrounded by Nathan's professional contacts. Divide and conquer. Archie, Bill Patterson. My former foreman grabbed my hand. "Hell of a party. That daughter-in-law of yours called me 3 times to make sure I'd come. Said it was important to have your oldest friends here." Throughout the cocktail hour, I noticed Madison working the room like a politician, always steering conversations toward my declining health, and how devoted she and Nathan were to my care. Several guests mentioned how lucky I was to have such caring family. Nathan played his part too, the concerned son always at my elbow, loudly reminding me of names I already knew, guiding me to chairs I could find myself. To the casual observer, it must have looked touching. Dinner was served precisely at 8. Madison had arranged the seating, so I was at the head table flanked by her and Nathan, facing the room like a king holding court. Or more accurately, like an exhibit being displayed. During the salad course, Madison kept touching her stomach with what she probably thought was subtlety. Nathan noticed too, shooting her warning glances she pretended not to see. Judge Harrison, my neighbor and poker buddy, leaned over during the main course. "Quite a production, Archie. Your daughter-in-law seems very invested in your celebration. She's been full of surprises lately, Carl." "I imagine so. By the way, she called my wife last week, asking about support services for elderly neighbors. Mentioned you'd been having difficulties." "Did she now?" "Don't worry. Helen told her you could probably outwork half the men in this room. But watch yourself, old friend. I've seen this play before." As dessert was served, an elaborate 7-tier cake that seemed more wedding than birthday appropriate, Madison stood up, tapping her champagne glass for attention. "Everyone, I have something wonderful to share." Her voice carried across the room with practiced projection. Nathan and I wanted to wait for a special moment surrounded by family and friends to announce our joy. Nathan's face went pale. "Madison, maybe we should—" "We're having a baby." She placed both hands on her stomach, beaming at the applause that rippled through the room. "Archie's first grandchild due in just 4 months." 4 months. Not 5 or 6, as would align with their wedding date. 4. I watched several of the lawyers at Nathan's table do the same math I'd done weeks ago, saw eyebrows raise slightly, before professional courtesy smoothed expressions back to congratulatory smiles. I stood slowly, raising my own glass. "To my first grandchild. Family is everything, isn't it, Madison?" "Everything," she agreed, missing the edge in my voice entirely. The party continued with renewed energy, guests approaching to offer congratulations. I played the delighted grandfather perfectly, even as I noticed Nathan downing scotch, like water, his jaw tight with suppressed anger. Around 10 o'clock, just as Madison was regaling a group with nursery decorating plans, a commotion arose near the entrance. The club's security was trying to stop someone from entering. "I'm invited," a slurred voice carried across the room. Madison said, "She promised." Jake Winters stumbled into view. His cheap suit wrinkled, his face flushed with alcohol and anger. Madison's perfectly composed expression cracked like fine china. "Sir, this is a private event," the security guard insisted. "Private? That's rich." Jake laughed bitterly, scanning the room until his eyes locked on Madison. "There she is. There's my—" "Jake!" Madison moved swiftly, her voice sharp with warning. "You need to leave." "Leave after everything you said. You promised if I stayed away." He weaved through the tables, guests pulling back as he passed. "You said the money would keep coming." Nathan stepped forward. "Who the hell is this?" Jake's laugh was ugly. "Who am I? I'm the guy she was with before, you fancy boy. The guy who's—" "Security!" Madison's voice pitched high with panic. But Jake was already at our table, pointing an unsteady finger at Madison's stomach. "That's mine, you know. My kid she's carrying. Check the dates, lawyer boy. Do the math." The silence that followed was absolute. 300 guests, frozen in a tableau of shock and embarrassment. Nathan's face cycled through confusion, understanding, and rage in the space of heartbeats. "Is this true?" Nathan's voice was deadly quiet. Madison's mouth opened and closed like a landed fish. "Nathan, I can explain." "The dates," Nathan said slowly. "You were already pregnant when we met." "It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" I asked, my voice carrying the authority of years running construction sites. "Madison, these people came here to celebrate family. Perhaps you should tell us what family means to you." Jake laughed again, bitter and drunk. "Family. She paid me $5,000 a month to disappear. Said she'd found a better deal. Someone who could give her kid a proper name and bank account. Sent me pictures from your wedding. Told me I was traded up for—" Security finally reached him, dragging him toward the exit as he continued shouting. "She owes me. That's my baby, I got rights." The party dissolved into chaos. Guests murmured excuses and headed for exits. Nathan stood frozen, staring at Madison like he'd never seen her before. "Nathan, please." Madison reached for him. "The baby needs a father. A real father. You're successful, established. Jake's nothing but a drunk gambler. Our child deserves better." "Our child?" Nathan's voice cracked. "It's not our child. It's not my child at all." "But it could be. We're married. You'd be the legal father. No one has to know." "Everyone knows." Nathan gestured at the remains of the party. 300 people just heard your ex announce it." Madison turned to me, tears streaming down her face. "Archie, please. You understand about protecting family. Make Nathan see reason." I stood straightening my tie with deliberate calm. "You're right, Madison. I do understand family. I understood it when I worked 18-hour days to keep a roof over Nathan's head after his mother died. I understood it when I sold everything I had to put him through school. I understood it when I stood outside a country club last month, learning I wasn't special enough to attend my own son's wedding." Madison flinched at each word. "But you," I continued, "you understand transactions, payments, arrangements. You saw my son as a meal ticket, and me as a bank account. That's not family, Madison. That's just business." "Dad." Nathan's voice was small, broken. "I didn't know. About the baby, I swear I didn't know." "There's a lot you didn't know, son, or chose not to see. But right now, you have bigger problems than what you didn't know. You have to decide what kind of man you're going to be. The kind who runs from hard truths, or the kind who faces them." I turned to the remaining guests, these witnesses to our family drama. "Thank you all for coming. The bar will remain open for those who need it. Good evening." As I walked through the club's entrance, I heard Nathan behind me. "Madison, we need to talk. Now. Privately." "Nathan, baby, please. We can work through this. Think of your reputation." "My reputation?" His laugh was hollow. "My reputation is destroyed. My marriage is a fraud. The baby isn't mine. And His voice broke. "I threw away the only real family I had for this facade." I sat in my truck in the parking lot, not starting the engine, just breathing. Through the country club windows, I could see the staff cleaning up the ruins of the party. $600 worth of cake that no one would eat. Thousands in decorations for a celebration that became a catastrophe. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Uncle Archie heard what happened. You okay?" I typed back, "I'm fine. The truth needed to come out." Another text, this from Margaret. "Oh, Archie, poor Nathan. What happens now?" What happened now, indeed. Madison's grand plan had unraveled in the most public way possible. Her ex's drunken appearance was unplanned, but his revelation was inevitable. Truth has a way of surfacing like water, finding cracks in a foundation. Nathan would have to face the Columbus legal community on Monday, knowing everyone had witnessed his humiliation. Madison would have to decide if staying in a marriage based on lies was worth it, now that the money she'd expected was protected behind legal walls she couldn't breach. And Jake Winters. He'd wake up tomorrow with a hangover and the realization that his meal ticket had just been publicly canceled. As for me, I started the truck and headed home to my empty house. The photos on the mantle would still show a younger Nathan, one who hadn't learned to be ashamed of his father's calloused hands. The garden Emily and I planted would still grow season after season regardless of the human dramas that played out around it. Madison had orchestrated this party to display her control over the family assets. Instead, she'd revealed the ugly truth beneath her designer dress and practiced smile. Sometimes the best gift you can give someone is the opportunity to show exactly who they really are. Happy birthday to me indeed. 3 weeks after the birthday disaster, Columbus's legal community was still buzzing about the scandal at Rolling Hills Country Club. Nathan had returned to work, but Tom Morrison's sources told me he was a ghost of himself, avoiding colleague gatherings and eating lunch alone in his office. Madison, meanwhile, had launched a full charm offensive, showing up at Nathan's firm with baked goods and playing the role of the devoted, misunderstood wife. Their marriage improbably hadn't ended immediately. Madison had convinced Nathan that Jake was lying about the pregnancy timeline, that she'd only paid him to stay away because he was dangerous. Nathan, desperate to salvage something from the wreckage of his life, had chosen to believe her, or at least pretend to. I hadn't heard from either of them since the party. The daily check-in calls had stopped, abruptly replaced by a silence that felt heavier than their false concern ever had. So when my phone rang at 6:30 on a Tuesday morning, showing Nathan's number, I knew something had shifted again. "Dad," Nathan's voice was tight with barely controlled panic. "I'm at Riverside Hospital. You need to come, now." "What's wrong?" "Just, please come. Emergency room. I'll explain when you get here." I dressed quickly, my mind running through possibilities. Had Madison done something drastic? Had Jake returned? 20 minutes later, I walked into Riverside's emergency room to find Nathan pacing near the reception desk, still in yesterday's wrinkled suit. "Dad, thank God." He grabbed my arm. "They brought you in by ambulance last night. Heart problems. You've been unconscious." "Nathan, I'm standing right here. What are you talking about?" His face went through several expressions before settling on confusion. "But the hospital called. Said you'd been admitted, that I was listed as emergency contact." We approached the reception desk together. The attendant checked their system, frowning. "I show an Archie Coleman, admitted last night, room 314. Cardiac observation unit." Nathan and I exchanged glances. Together, we took the elevator to the 3rd floor, where we found the room in question. The bed was occupied by a man who looked to be in his 80s. African American, definitely not me. "Can I help you?" A nurse appeared in the doorway. "We're looking for Archie Coleman," Nathan said. "That's Mr. Coleman right there. Been here since yesterday afternoon." "There's been a mistake," I said. "I'm Archie Coleman." The nurse checked her tablet, then the patient's wristband. "Oh my, you're right. This is Arthur Coleman, not Archie. Someone made a data entry error. Are you the family they called?" "My son, apparently." "I'm so sorry for the confusion. These things happen with similar names." "These things happen," I interrupted gently, "when someone's expecting them to. Nathan, who told you I'd been admitted?" Nathan was already checking his phone. "The call came from the hospital's main number. They said you'd collapsed at home, that neighbors called 911. I studied my son's face. Despite everything, he'd rushed here in yesterday's clothes. Probably hadn't slept, genuinely terrified for my well-being. The Nathan I'd raised was still in there, buried under Madison's influence, but not gone. "Son, why don't we get coffee? We need to talk." In the hospital cafeteria, over bitter coffee and stale pastries, Nathan looked more vulnerable than I'd seen him since he was 12, and broke his arm falling from that oak tree. "I thought I'd lost you," he admitted quietly. "When they called, all I could think about was how I'd wasted the last 2 years. How you weren't at my wedding. How I let Madison convince me you were something to be ashamed of. And now, he laughed bitterly. Now, I'm the one everyone's ashamed of. The lawyer whose wife was pregnant with another man's baby. Do you know what they're calling me at the office? Nathan the cuckold. Real clever, right?" "What does Madison say about all this?" "She's maintaining the timeline, was confused that the baby is mine. Even offered to do a paternity test after birth to prove it. But Dad," he met my eyes, "I found the clinic receipts. She's been going to a place that specializes in sensitive situations. Paid cash for every visit." "What are you going to do?" "I don't know. If I divorce her now pregnant after that public scene, I look like a monster. If I stay, I'm raising another man's child while everyone knows the truth. Madison says if I support her through the pregnancy, she'll sign whatever postnatal agreement I want. Jake's parental rights for money, essentially. Is that what you want to buy your way out of this?" Nathan's hands wrapped around his coffee cup, like he was trying to warm them. "I don't know what I want anymore. Except..." He paused. I wanted you to be okay. When I thought you were dying, nothing else mattered. Not the money, not the properties, not even the humiliation. Just, I wanted my dad. The silent stretch between us filled with the ambient noise of the hospital cafeteria. Finally, I made a decision. Nathan, I need to tell you something. My health is perfect. My memory is sharp. There's no dementia, no confusion, no decline. His coffee cup stopped halfway to his lips. What? I've been playing a role, son. When I realized you and Madison were after my assets, I decided to let you show me who you'd become. Every forgotten name, every repeated story, every shaky moment was calculated. Nathan set the cup down with trembling hands. You've been testing me. I've been protecting myself. From a son who forged my signature on loan documents, who told his colleagues I lived in a nursing home, who excluded me from his wedding because I might embarrass his new social circle. The color drained from Nathan's face. You know about the loans? George Hartman and I have known from the beginning. The forged signatures, the fake consulting payments for your rent, all of it. We have enough evidence to prosecute Nathan. Fraud, forgery, elder abuse. Your legal career would be over before it properly began. Dad, But I haven't. Yet. Do you want to know why? Nathan nodded mutely. Because despite everything, you're still my son. Emily's son. And somewhere under Madison's influence, and your misguided ambition, I keep hoping the boy I raised is still there. He is, Nathan whispered. God, Dad, he is. I got lost. The firm, the pressure, the image I thought I needed. Madison made it all seem so important, so necessary. She said your background would hold me back, that I needed to distance myself to succeed. And how's that success working out? Nathan laughed short and sharp. I'm about to be unemployed. The senior partners have made it clear I'm an embarrassment. Madison's spending has us so far in debt I can't see daylight. The apartment we can't afford, the car payments, the country club memberships. I make good money, Dad, but not Madison money. So what now? Now, Nathan rubbed his face. Now I'm sitting in a hospital cafeteria with the father I betrayed, married to a woman carrying another man's child, facing financial and professional ruin. I'd say I've hit bottom. Good place to start building from, I observed. Nathan looked at me sharply. You always said that. On construction sites. That solid foundations start at the bottom. Still true. Question is, what kind of foundation do you want to build now? Before Nathan could answer, his phone buzzed. Madison's name appeared on the screen. He showed it to me, then deliberately declined the call. She's probably wondering where I am. I left when the hospital called without telling her. She'll survive. Nathan, I need to know something. The birthday party, did you know what Madison was planning? The announcement, no. She'd told me to wait, that the timing wasn't right. I think she planned to use the public moment to lock in her position. Make it harder for me to leave once everyone knew. But Jake wasn't part of the plan. God, no. I've never been so humiliated. 300 people watching my life explode. But you know what the worst part was? I waited. You defended me. After everything I'd done, you stood up and took control. You could have destroyed me right there, told everyone about the forged signatures, the stolen money. Instead, you just said that thing about facing hard truths. You're my son, Nathan. That doesn't change even when you lose your way. Nathan's phone buzzed again. This time the text preview showed, Where are you? The hospital wants to discuss your father's condition. We need to be there to make decisions. She thinks you're incapacitated, Nathan said slowly. This is what she's been waiting for. A medical event that lets her push for power of attorney. What are you going to tell her? Nathan looked at the phone, then at me. Then he typed, False alarm. Dad's fine. Be home soon. The response was immediate. What do you mean, false alarm? They said cardiac event. Nathan turned the phone face down. Let her wonder. Dad, I need help. Not money, not bailouts. Help. The kind you used to give when I was learning to swing a hammer. Show me how to fix what I've broken. Starting with Madison. The marriage is over, we both know that. But she's pregnant, and despite everything, that child is innocent. How do I end this without becoming the villain who abandoned a pregnant woman? First, you need a lawyer. A good one who isn't connected to your firm. Can't afford one. Madison's drained everything. I know someone. Sandra Chen, Ruth's daughter. Specializes in complex divorces. She'll work out a payment plan. Why would you help me after everything? Because that's what fathers do. But Nathan, this isn't free. There are conditions. He straightened. Anything. First, full confession to George Hartman about the forged documents. We'll work out restitution instead of prosecution. Every penny gets paid back. Yes. Second, you're done at Preston and Associates. That life is over. It was over anyway. Third, you get back to work. Real work. My friend Bill Patterson needs help with his renovation company. You'll start as a laborer, minimum wage, work your way up like everyone else. Nathan's hands, soft from years of office work, flexed unconsciously. I haven't done physical labor since college summers. Then you'll remember quickly. Fourth, counseling. Individual and financial. You need to understand how you got here. Agreed. Last condition. Sunday dinners. Every week. No excuses, no cancellations. You want to rebuild our relationship? It starts with showing up. Yes, Dad, yes to all of it. My phone rang. Madison's number. Archie. It's Madison. We're at the hospital. They said you had a heart event. Nathan and I are so worried. Madison. I said calmly, I'm sitting here having coffee with Nathan. There's been a misunderstanding. The silence stretched long before she spoke again. Her voice different, calculating. You're fine. Perfectly fine. In fact, I just had my annual physical last week. Doctor says I have the heart of a man 20 years younger. But they called Nathan. They said, data entry error. Arthur Coleman, not Archie. Nathan's here with me now. Would you like to speak with him? No. Just have him come home. We have things to discuss. After she hung up, Nathan shook his head. She's going to be furious. This was supposed to be her moment. Let her be furious. You have bigger concerns now, like calling Sandra Chen and starting the process of reclaiming your life. We left the hospital together, walking to the parking garage in comfortable silence. At our cars, Nathan paused. Dad. That birthday party, watching Jake announce the truth about the baby. Were you surprised? I'd known for weeks. Private investigator found out when I had him look into Madison's background. You could have told me privately, saved me the public humiliation. Would you have believed me? Or would Madison have convinced you I was a confused old man trying to break up your marriage? Nathan considered this. You're right. I needed to see it. Hear it from Jake himself. I'm sorry it took public humiliation to open my eyes. Sometimes we need our foundations shaken before we realize they're built on sand. More construction wisdom. Life wisdom. Now go home, Nathan. Face Madison. Start the paperwork. Begin the hard work. I'll call Sandra and tell her to expect you. As I watched Nathan drive away, I reflected on the morning's strange turn. Someone, probably Madison, had tried to use a hospital mix-up to advance their agenda. Instead, it had become the catalyst for Nathan to finally see the truth. My phone buzzed. Tom Morrison. Interesting morning at Riverside Hospital. Security cameras show Madison there at 5 a.m. talking to admissions. Thought you should know. So she'd orchestrated the whole thing. Found someone with a similar name, created the confusion, set the stage for a power grab, while I was supposedly incapacitated. Madison was nothing if not resourceful. But she'd made a crucial error. She'd assumed Nathan's greed was stronger than his love, that when faced with his father's mortality, he'd think first of inheritance rather than loss. Instead, he'd rushed to the hospital in yesterday's clothes, terrified of losing the father he'd pushed away. Madison had given me an unexpected gift, proof that my son's heart, though tarnished, still beat with genuine emotion. Now the real work of rebuilding could begin. 6 weeks had passed since the hospital incident. Nathan, true to his word, had started the divorce proceedings with Sandra Chen. He'd also begun working with Bill Patterson's renovation crew, coming home each evening exhausted, but somehow more at peace than I'd seen him in years. His soft lawyer hands now bore calluses and cuts from honest labor. Madison had not gone quietly. She'd hired Sherman Fitzgerald, Columbus's most ruthless divorce attorney, and was demanding alimony, the apartment, both cars, and a settlement that would bankrupt Nathan twice over. Her pregnancy was now showing prominently, which she used to maximum effect in every legal proceeding, playing the abandoned, expectant mother, despite the baby's questionable paternity. It was a Thursday evening when Nathan arrived for dinner, his face drawn with fresh worry. "Dad, we need to talk." I set down the lasagna I'd just pulled from the oven. "What's wrong?" Madison's lawyer sent a new demand. She wants a meeting, all parties present. Says she has information that will significantly impact the divorce proceedings. "When?" "Tomorrow, 2 o'clock. Sandra thinks it's a bluff, but Madison's been too quiet lately. It makes me nervous." "Then we face it together. I'll be there." Nathan shook his head. "She specifically demanded you not be present. Just me, Sandra, her, and Fitzgerald." That night, I called Tom Morrison. "Madison's planning something for tomorrow. Can you have someone watching?" "Already on it, Archie. She's been meeting with someone interesting. Jake Winter's cousin, a small-time document forger named Terry Winters. Did 18 months for check fraud." The pieces clicked. "She's going to present forged evidence of some kind." "That'd be my guess. Want me to intervene?" "No. Let her play her hand, but document everything." The next afternoon, I sat in my truck outside Sandra Chen's law office, despite Madison's demand that I not attend. I'd learned long ago that being where you're not supposed to be often yields the most valuable information. My phone rang at 2:15. Nathan, his voice shaking. "Dad, you need to come up now." Sandra Chen's conference room was tense when I entered. Madison sat beside Sherman Fitzgerald, radiating smug satisfaction. Spread across the table were what appeared to be financial documents and printed emails. "Archie." Fitzgerald smiled like a shark. "How convenient. Your son was just about to call you anyway." "What's this about?" Madison leaned forward. "It's about the truth, Archie. About how you've hidden assets from Nathan, manipulated him, used your supposed wealth to control him." "Excuse me." She gestured to the documents. "Emails between you and your accountant, discussing how to keep Nathan from his rightful inheritance. Bank statements showing millions in offshore accounts. Property deeds for holdings you never disclosed." I picked up one of the emails, examining it carefully. The header looked legitimate. The language sounded like something I might write, but the content was pure fiction. "These are forgeries," I said calmly. "That's what guilty people always say," Fitzgerald interjected. "We have originals. We have witnesses who'll testify to overhearing conversations about your plans to disinherit Nathan." Sandra Chen spoke for the first time. "What does this have to do with the divorce?" Madison's smile was venomous. "Everything. Nathan deserves his fair share of the family fortune. As his wife, I'm fighting to ensure he gets it. If Archie won't provide for his son willingly, we'll force the issue in court." "You want to sue me?" I asked. "Elder abuse," Fitzgerald announced. "Financial manipulation. Fraud. Your son has grounds to challenge every trust, every protection you've put in place. With Madison's support, of course." "And if I don't?" Nathan asked quietly. "Then the divorce proceeds as planned. Madison gets a reasonable settlement, maintains her dignity. Everyone moves on. But if you abandon her..." Madison touched her stomach. "Well, a pregnant woman fighting for her husband's rightful inheritance makes a compelling story." "You're trying to blackmail us," Sandra stated flatly. "We're offering options," Fitzgerald corrected. Nathan can choose to stand with his wife and claim what's his, or he can proceed with this divorce and watch his father's secrets exposed in court. I studied the forged documents again. Terry Winters had done decent work, but there were tells. Wrong bank routing numbers, dates that didn't align with real events, property addresses that didn't exist. "Nathan," I said quietly, "what do you think of this evidence?" My son looked at the papers, then at Madison, then at me. "I think," he said slowly, "that Madison doesn't know my father very well." "Nathan," Madison started. "No." Nathan stood up. "I'm done. Dad, remember that wedding gift you tried to give us? The watch?" I nodded. "You never told Madison what else was with it, did you?" "No, son, I didn't." Nathan turned to his soon-to-be ex-wife. There was an envelope with the watch. Inside was documentation for a trust fund. $500,000 for his future grandchildren's education. All we had to do was include him in our lives, treat him like family, instead of an ATM. Madison's composed expression cracked slightly. "But we couldn't even invite him to the wedding." Nathan continued. "You convinced me he'd embarrass us, that his background would hurt my career. So that gift, that incredible, generous gift, went unclaimed." "You're lying," Madison said, but uncertainty colored her voice. I pulled out my phone and showed Sandra a document. The Coleman Family Education Trust, established 3 years ago. The triggering event was to be Nathan's wedding, with distribution beginning when any grandchildren turned 5. But there was a condition. "What condition?" Fitzgerald demanded. "Active family participation. Regular contact inclusion in major events demonstrated relationship between grandfather and grandchildren. When you excluded me from the wedding, you voided the terms." Madison's face went white. $500,000. For education only. Non-transferable, managed by independent trustees. It was never about money, Madison. It was about family. "We can still fix this," Madison said desperately. "The baby, when it's born, you'll be its grandfather legally. We can make this work." "Except it's not Nathan's baby," I said gently. "We all know that. Jake confirmed it publicly, and you've been paying him to stay quiet. These forged documents, this attempted blackmail, it's just another con." Fitzgerald shuffled his papers. "These aren't forgeries. My client stands by their authenticity." "Then you won't mind if we verify them." Sandra pulled out her laptop. "Let's call First National right now. Confirm these account numbers." "That's not necessary," Madison started. "Oh, but it is." I pulled out my own phone. "In fact, I have Ruth Chen on speed dial." "Ruth." "Yes. I'm here with some financial documents I need verified." As I read the account numbers aloud, Madison's composure crumbled entirely. The accounts didn't exist. The properties were fictional. The emails were fabricated. "Seems like your document source wasn't as reliable as you thought," I told Madison. "Terry Winters, right, Jake's cousin Tom Morrison, has lovely surveillance photos of you meeting with him." Fitzgerald, recognizing a sinking ship, began gathering his papers. "I'll need to review this evidence with my client privately." "You do that," Sandra said cheerfully. "And while you're at it, review Ohio's laws on fraud, attempted extortion, and presenting false evidence. I'm sure the Bar Association would be fascinated by your involvement." Madison stood abruptly. "Nathan, please. Think about our child." "Jake's child," Nathan corrected. "And I am thinking about it. That baby deserves better than a mother who lies, schemes, and forges documents. I'll make sure child support is fair, Madison. But we're done. This marriage, this con, all of it." "You're making a mistake. You could have had everything." "I have everything," Nathan said quietly. "I have a father who loves me, despite my failures. I have work that means something, even if it doesn't pay like law. I have the chance to rebuild my life on truth, instead of lies." "What do you have, Madison?" She stormed out without answering, Fitzgerald hurrying after her. Sandra, Nathan, and I sat in the sudden silence. "Well," Sandra said finally, "that was interesting. I'll file charges for the attempted fraud, With this evidence, the divorce should move quickly now. After she left to prepare paperwork, Nathan and I walked to the parking lot together. "That trust fund," Nathan said. "Was it real?" "Every word. It's still there, actually. The terms could be modified if circumstances changed." "Even after everything, you're my son. That means something even when you forget it." Nathan stopped at his beat-up work truck, so different from the Tesla Madison had insisted on. "I keep thinking about that watch. Grandpa's Rolex. Where is it now?" "In my safe, waiting." "For what?" "For you to earn it. Not through money or schemes or manipulations, but by becoming the man your mother would have been proud of." Nathan's eyes filled. "How long will that take?" "You're closer than you think, son. Today proved that." 3 weeks later, the divorce was finalized. Madison, faced with fraud charges and the collapse of her schemes, accepted a minimal settlement. Jake Winters resurfaced, demanding parental rights, which complicated Madison's plans to find another mark. Last I heard, she'd left Columbus for Chicago, seeking fresh hunting grounds. Nathan moved into a modest apartment near Bill Patterson's shop. He worked 6 days a week, attended counseling faithfully, and never missed Sunday dinner. His hands grew calloused, his shoulders broad from actual labor instead of gym machines. The partners at Preston and Associates occasionally called, hinting at second chances, but Nathan politely declined. "I'm learning more from Bill than I ever did in law school," he told me one evening. "About work, about character, about what actually matters." 6 months after the divorce, on a quiet Sunday evening, I presented Nathan with the watch. Not because he'd reclaimed his law career or rebuilt his fortune, but because he'd rebuilt himself. "Grandpa would have liked who you've become," I told him as he fastened the restored Rolex to his wrist. "Think Mom would?" "I know she would." Nathan studied the watch, its classic face catching the light. "Madison never understood, did it? She thought the gift was just an expensive watch. She saw what she always saw, dollar signs. She never realized the real gift was the chance to be family. That's worth more than any trust fund." As Nathan left that evening, I watched from my doorway as he drove away in his work truck, grandfather's watch on his wrist, calluses on his hands, truth in his heart. Madison had tried to steal my son with promises of wealth and status. Instead, her schemes had returned him to me, refined by fire, stronger for the breaking. The wedding gift had finally found its rightful owner, not through inheritance or manipulation, but through the only currency that truly mattered: redemption earned with sweat, honesty, and love. 2 years had passed since that confrontation in Sandra Chen's office. The seasons had turned, as they do in Ohio, from the bitter winter of Nathan's divorce, through the tentative spring of his rebuilding, to what now felt like a full summer of redemption. I stood in the backyard of Bill Patterson's house, watching my son direct a crew in setting up chairs and stringing lights between the oak trees. Nathan's shoulders were broader now, his movements confident as he guided the younger workers. His hands, once soft from shuffling papers, now bore the permanent calluses of honest labor. "Archie." A warm voice called out. I turned to see Sarah Martinez approaching with a tray of lemonade for the workers. She was Bill's daughter, a pediatric nurse who'd started joining our Sunday dinners about 8 months ago. Where Madison had been all sharp angles and designer clothes, Sarah radiated warmth in her simple sundress and genuine smile. "Sarah, you shouldn't be carrying that. Let me help." "I'm fine, Archie. Though Nathan's worse than you, trying to do everything for me." She laughed, touching her slightly rounded belly. 4 months pregnant isn't disabled. This pregnancy was different. No secrets, no lies, no manipulation. Sarah and Nathan had told me together, both nervous and excited, holding hands in my kitchen as they shared their news. The wedding had been planned before they knew a small backyard affair, so different from the country club spectacle I'd been excluded from 3 years ago. Uncle Archie, Marcus, appeared carrying more chairs. "Where do you want these?" "Ask the foreman," I said, pointing to Nathan. "He's running this show." I watched my nephew jog over to Nathan, saw them laugh about something as they worked. Family helping family the way it should be. Tom Morrison found me as the sun began to set. Hell of a change from that country club fiasco, he observed. Madison ever resurface? Last I heard, she was in Florida. Married some real estate developer, divorced 6 months later when he caught her with his business partner. Some people never change. And Jake? Still floating around Columbus. Has visitation with his son once a month? Madison named the kid Jaden, apparently. Poor child. I felt a pang for that innocent baby born into such a mess. Nathan had asked about setting something aside for the boy's education, despite everything. We were still discussing it. Dad. Nathan appeared at my elbow, Sarah beside him. Ready. The ceremony was simple. Bill Patterson officiating, having gotten ordained online specifically for this occasion. Margaret, as Sarah's matron of honor. Marcus, as Nathan's best man. 40 guests, instead of 400, all people who actually knew and loved the couple. I sat in the front row, in the seat of honor I'd been denied before. When Bill asked who gave this woman to be married, Sarah's widowed mother, and I stood together. When he asked for the rings, I watched Nathan's hand shake slightly as he slipped the simple band onto Sarah's finger. No flashy diamonds, no status symbols. Just a plain gold band, bought with money earned through sweat and toil. I now pronounce you husband and wife, Bill declared, and the small gathering erupted in genuine joy. At the reception, really just a barbecue in Bill's backyard, I found myself at a picnic table with George Hartman and Ruth Chen. Nathan's loan payments have been perfect, Ruth noted. 18 months without missing one. He'll be clear in another year. And no more forged signatures, George added with a wry smile. Though I kept all the documentation just in case. He's changed, I said simply. People can, George agreed, when they want it badly enough. The evening progressed with the easy flow of real celebration. No choreographed moments, no society photographers, no one playing roles. Just family and friends sharing food and laughter under strung lights as fireflies began their ancient dance. Nathan found me as the party wound down, Sarah tucked against his side, both of them glowing with quiet happiness. Dad, we have something to tell you. Sarah smiled. If it's a boy, we'd like to name him Archie. Archie William, after both grandfathers. I couldn't speak for a moment, my throat tight with emotion. And Nathan continued, we've been talking to Sandra Chen about something. About trusts and education funds and doing things right this time. I raised an eyebrow. That fund you set up, the one Madison and I forfeited. Could we set up something similar? Not just for our children, but open to others. Maybe call it the Coleman Family Foundation. Help kids from working families get education. Funded how? Nathan straightened. I'm buying into Bill's business. Junior partner. It'll take everything I've saved, but in 5 years, if we grow like we plan, I'll have real equity. Real money earned honestly. I want to use it right this time. We both do, Sarah added. My parents were immigrants, worked 3 jobs to put me through nursing school. I know what sacrifice means. We want to pass that forward. I looked at my son, standing there in his rented suit, that didn't quite fit his new muscular frame, work-roughened hand, holding Sarah's gentle one eyes, clear and honest, in a way they hadn't been in years. Let's talk to George next week, I said. Draw up something proper. The party ended, as these things do with tired children, carried to cars promises to get together, soon hugs and handshakes, and the comfortable exhaustion of joy. Nathan and Sarah left for their honeymoon, a camping trip to Hocking Hills. Nothing fancy, but everything they wanted. I stayed to help Bill clean up stacking chairs and pulling down lights as the summer night settled around us. You did good, Archie, Bill said suddenly. Not many fathers would have handled things like you did. Could have prosecuted, could have cut him off completely. Instead, you gave him the chance to earn his way back. He had to want it. Sure, but you had to allow it. That's harder sometimes. As I drove home through the quiet streets of Columbus, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. 3 years ago, I'd stood in Nathan's doorway, holding a wedding gift for a ceremony I wasn't invited to. The pain of that rejection had led to Madison's schemes, Jake's revelations, forgery and fraud, and public humiliation. But it had also led to this Nathan rebuilding himself from foundation, up finding real love with a woman who valued character over bank accounts, creating a future based on truth instead of facade. My phone buzzed as I pulled into my driveway. A text from Nathan: "Thank you, Dad, for everything, for not giving up on me." I typed back, "Thank you for finding your way home." Inside the house felt less empty than usual. On the mantel, new photos had joined the old Nathan and Sarah at Sunday dinner. Nathan teaching Marcus construction techniques. The ultrasound of my grandchild due in December. The oak tree outside creaked in the night breeze. And I thought of Emily. She would have loved Sarah, would have cried at the wedding, would have been proud of the man our son had become. Not a prestigious lawyer, but a good man who worked with his hands and honored his word. Madison had given Nathan what she thought he wanted: status, sophistication, a life scrubbed clean of blue-collar roots. But she'd never understood what he actually needed: connection, authenticity, the solid ground of family that loves you, whether you're wearing a suit or work boots. I poured a glass of whiskey and raised it to Emily's photo. "We did it, love. We raised him right. It just took him a while to remember." Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The business to grow, the baby to prepare, for the foundation to establish. There would be setbacks and struggles, because that's what life serves alongside its joys. But tonight, I sat in my modest house, built by my own hands, and felt the deep satisfaction of a man whose greatest construction project had finally been completed. Not a building or a business, but a son reconstructed from the rubble of his choices, stronger at the broken places, ready to build something lasting of his own. The wedding gift I'd carried to that apartment 3 years ago had been more than a watch or a trust fund. It had been the chance for redemption, the opportunity to choose family over fortune, truth over image. Madison had scorned that gift, seeing only its monetary value. But Nathan, my son, had finally unwrapped its true worth. And in doing so, he'd given me a gift in return: the proof that love, patience, and second chances can build something more valuable than any fortune. The Coleman family story would continue, not in country clubs or law firms, but in the honest work of hands and hearts. Madison had tried to steal my son with fool's gold. Instead, she'd inadvertently helped him discover what real treasure looked like. It looked like Sarah's smile, like calloused hands holding a newborn, like Sunday dinners where everyone was welcome, and no one was too special to share pot roast. It looked like a wedding under string lights, where every guest truly mattered. It looked like redemption. And redemption, I'd learned, was always worth the wait. To everyone reading this story, I want to ask you, have you ever had to choose between image and authenticity? Between what looks successful and what feels right? What would you do if your family chose status over substance? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please consider giving it a like and subscribing for more stories about family redemption and the true meaning of success. Share it with someone who might need to hear that it's never too late to find your way back home. Thank you for joining me on this journey. May you always remember that the greatest inheritance isn't money or property, but the wisdom to know what truly matters and the courage to choose it. Until next time, remember, we're all just one choice away from a different path. Choose wisely, choose family, choose truth.